Hello, friends. We want to know from which cities you listen to us. Like and write in the comments where you are from, and also share what shocking stories happened in your city or even to you. Subscribe because the next story may be about your city or your personal drama. And now a new exciting story. Jacob Clark pushed open the glass door to his downtown Chicago office, straightened his tie, and inhaled the cool September air. It was 6 p.m. Friday, the end of the work week. He was already looking forward to going home to Emily. His wife, his rock, the woman who, in 3 years of marriage, had never given him a reason to doubt that he had made the right choice. Jacob smiled, remembering how she had left a note on the kitchen table last night. "Don't forget, I'm making your favorite steak tomorrow." It was so typical of her, the little gestures that made their life cozy. He went down to the subway, took out his phone, and dialed her number. On the second ring, Emily answered, her voice warm and slightly mocking. "Well, Mr. Clark, have you already escaped from the office, or are you still chained to the table?" "Ha, he escaped," Jacob laughed, weaving between the hurrying people. "Just came out. Are you home?"
Yeah, I just threw the potatoes in the oven.
"The steak is already waiting for its fate. Are you going to pick up some wine? Red?" "Of course, red. You know I don't drink white. That's for weaklings," she teased. "Got it. I'll take the Cabernet. I'll be there in half an hour, if the corks don't eat me up." "I'm waiting, my hero. Don't be late, or the potatoes will get cold." Jacob hung up, feeling a warmth in his chest. These conversations, so simple, always reminded him why he had fallen in love with Emily. She wasn't the type to make a scene or demand attention. Always on the same page, always knowing how to lighten the mood. He stopped at a liquor store near his home, picked out a bottle of California Cabernet, and whistled as he headed toward their Lincoln Park apartment. Their house was small but stylish, a two-bedroom apartment with large windows, hardwood floors, and a ton of throw pillows on the couch that Emily loved buying. Jacob walked in, took off his shoes, and immediately caught the scent of grilled meat and rosemary. Emily was pottering around the kitchen, humming an old Taylor Swift song. Her blonde hair was pulled back into a messy bun, and she was wearing his old t-shirt and jeans. She turned around when she saw him and smiled. "Oh, the wine king has arrived," she exclaimed, wiping her hands on a towel. "Come on, show me what you've brought." Jacob held up the bottle like a trophy. "Cabernet, as ordered. Don't thank me, I know. I'm the best husband in the world." "Well, let's say in the top 5, she winked, taking the bottle. "Go wash your hands, we're going to eat now." He went into the bathroom, splashed water on his face, and looked in the mirror. He was a good-looking man at 32, with dark hair, a light stubble, and a few wrinkles around his eyes that Emily called charismatic. His job at the law firm was exhausting, but at home he always felt like he belonged. Emily made their lives that way easy, predictable, right? They sat at the small wooden table they'd bought at a flea market, the first year of their marriage, for dinner. The steak was perfectly cooked, the potatoes crisp, and the wine warmed them gently. Emily raised her glass. "What are we drinking?" she asked, squinting. "To us," Jacob said, clinking glasses with her. "To make my Fridays better than court dates." "Oh, that's the compliment of the year," she laughed. "Although, I was wondering if maybe we should take a vacation." "Vacation?" Jacob cut off a piece of meat. "Where?" "I don't know, maybe to Lake Michigan or California, just to get away for a couple of days without your papers and my reports." "Your reports?" He raised an eyebrow. "You say marketing is all fun." "Yeah, it's fun until I have to write 100 emails a day," Emily rolled her eyes. "The boss got me busy again today and wants me to come up with a new campaign by Monday." "Seriously?" Jacob frowned. "You're already working like a horse. Maybe I should tell him to back off?" "Oh yes, my knight in shining armor," she poked him with her fork. "No need, I can handle it. Instead, tell me about your day." Jacob began to talk about a case he was handling, a complex corporate dispute where a client was trying to wriggle out of a tax problem. Emily listened, resting her chin on her hand, occasionally asking questions. "Wait, Did this client of yours really think no one would notice $1 million in an offshore account? She asked, pouring herself more wine. Yeah, a financial genius, Jacob chuckled. But we'll get him out if he stops lying to his own lawyer. People are so strange, Emily shook her head. They lie even when it hurts them. Well, not all, Jacob said, looking at her. You, for example, are always honest with me. Emily smiled, but her gaze faltered for a second. She took a quick sip of wine and changed the subject. Okay, enough about work. Did you watch that series I recommended to you? The Heirs? Jacob winced. Too many rich idiots yelling at each other. That's the beauty of it, she exclaimed. Come on, give it a chance. We'll start the second series today. Only if you make popcorn, he winked. We agreed, but you washed the dishes. After dinner, they cleared the table, and Jacob picked up the plates while Emily made popcorn. She turned on a TV show, and they settled on the couch, their feet up on the ottoman. Emily snuggled up to him, her head on his shoulder. Jacob could smell her shampoo, something floral familiar. He wrapped his arms around her, thinking how lucky he was. You know, he said as the credits rolled on the screen, sometimes I think I don't deserve you. Oh, stop it, Emily nudged him with her elbow. You just want me to make you coffee tomorrow morning. Exactly, he laughed. But seriously, you make my life better. Well, you're not bad either, Clark. She turned and kissed him on the cheek. Just don't get cocky. They went to bed around midnight. Jacob watched Emily take off her earrings and brush her hair in front of the mirror. She always did it slowly, as if in some ritual. He came over, hugged her from behind, and kissed her neck. Why are you so romantic today? She giggled, looking at him through the mirror. You're just beautiful, he said, and I love you. I love you too, she replied, but there was a hint of thoughtfulness in her voice. They went to bed, and Jacob quickly fell asleep, holding her. Emily lay next to him, staring at the ceiling. Her mind was elsewhere, but Jacob didn't see it. To him, their life was perfect, comfortable, stable, without cracks. He didn't know that Emily was keeping a secret she never spoke about. Her past, left behind in Iowa, was locked away, and she hoped it would stay that way forever. They woke up late on Saturday morning. Jacob stretched, smelling coffee from the kitchen. Emily was already there, in her cat pajamas, making pancakes. Good morning, sleepyhead, she said without turning around. I'm already on my third pancake, and you're still asleep. It's not me who's sleepy, it's you who's too alert, he grumbled, sitting down at the table. Do you have coffee? On the table, she nodded at the mug. With milk, just like you like it. You're an angel, he said, taking a sip. They ate pancakes with maple syrup, chatting about their plans for the weekend. Emily suggested going to the park. Jacob wanted to stop at the bookstore. Just don't buy another time about laws, she said, dipping a pancake in syrup. Your shelf is already creaking. Don't buy another pillow, he retorted. Our sofa will soon sink. These are different things, she said indignantly. Pillows create coziness. And books create intelligence, he grinned. The day passed easily. They walked through the park, holding hands, drank lattes in a cafe, and argued about what movie to watch that evening. Jacob looked at Emily and thought that their life was like a good movie, where everything was in its place. He did not notice how sometimes she looked away when he asked about her hometown or old friends. For him, these were trivialities. For Emily, they were minds that she carefully avoided. Jacob Clark sat in his office, staring at his laptop screen, his mind far from the contract he was supposed to be reviewing. Emily had been acting strange for the past few weeks, and it was bothering him. She had always been so open, always sharing what was on her mind, but now something was different. He couldn't quite put his finger on it, but he could feel it, like a slight draft in a room that you noticed but couldn't quite place. It all started about a month ago. Emily started staying late at work more often, citing urgent projects. She became nervous when she picked up her phone, and Jacob noticed her quickly putting it away when he entered the room. At first, he chalked it up to fatigue. Emily's marketing job was demanding, and she often complained about her boss piling on a ton of work. But then little details started to add up. The most obvious one happened last night. They were sitting on the couch watching a movie, and Emily's phone, which was sitting on the coffee table, lit up with a notification. Jacob caught a glimpse of it as a text from a number with no name, just numbers. Emily immediately grabbed her phone, scanned the text, and swiped away the notification as if nothing had happened. She smiled at him, but it was a strained smile. "Who was that?" he asked then, trying to sound casual. "Oh, just a colleague," she replied, shrugging her shoulders. "I reminded you about tomorrow's meeting." At 10 o'clock, Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Well, you know Lisa, she's obsessed with work." Emily laughed, but the laugh came out somehow harsh. He didn't press, but the moment stuck in his mind. Emily had never been one to hide her phone or get nervous about messages. She even left it unlocked in the kitchen when she cooked. And now she even took it with her to the bathroom. Jacob tried to convince himself it was nothing, but a worm of doubt was already gnawing. This morning, Monday, he decided to be more attentive. They had breakfast together as usual, but Emily was absent-minded. She stirred her coffee, looked away, and answered in monosyllables. "Are you okay?" Jacob asked, spreading jam on his toast. "Huh? Yeah, everything's fine," she smiled, but her eyes remained distant. "I just didn't get enough sleep." Working late again, he took a bite of toast, watching her. "Well, sort of," Emily shrugged. "I had to finish the presentation." "You said you finished it on Friday," he said, recalling their conversation over the weekend. Emily froze for a second, then nodded quickly. "Yes, but the boss asked me to redo a couple of slides. You know how annoying he is." "Yeah, your boss is a dream," Jacob chuckled, but something inside him skipped a beat. She'd never gotten confused over such trifles before. After breakfast, Emily left for work with a peck on his cheek. Jacob watched her put on her coat and noticed that she checked her phone before tucking it into her bag. It was subtle, but he noticed. When the door closed behind her, he was left sitting at his desk, staring at his empty plate. Was he overreacting? Was it just stress from work? But deep down, he knew something was wrong. At the office, Jacob was trying to concentrate on his work. His colleague, Matt, dropped by his office around noon, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you've been run over by a truck," Matt said, setting his coffee down on the table. "Have you been studying the law all night again?" "No, I just didn't get enough sleep," Jacob lied, sipping his coffee. "I've got a lot to do at home." "Ah, family life," Matt grinned. "How's Emily? Still cooking you those steaks?" Yet Friday was a masterpiece. Jacob forced a smile. "She's fine, just a lot of work." "Well, you married guys don't understand the bachelor thrill," Matt winked. "Listen, the guys and I are going to the bar after work today. You want to go?" "Nah, pass." Jacob shook his head. "I want to go home early." "Watch out, you'll become a henpecked husband," Matt chuckled and left. Jacob was left alone, staring at the screen. He opened his email, but instead of working, he began thinking about Emily. Her late nights at work had become a regular occurrence. She used to always let him know if she was staying late, but now she just said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you." And that phone. Why was she so nervous about texts? He remembered how a few weeks ago she'd gone into the other room to answer a call and come back with flushed cheeks, explaining that it was her mother. But was her mother calling at 11 at night? By lunchtime, he decided to call her. Emily answered on the third ring, her voice sounding hurried. "Hey, how are you?" Jacob asked, trying not to show his anxiety. "Oh, hi, I'm fine," she said. "Just on my lunch break, eating a salad. What about you?" "Well, I'm sitting in the office, drinking coffee from Matt." He paused. "Listen, what time will you be home today?" Probably around 7, she replied. "Why?" "I was just thinking maybe we could order pizza and have a movie night," he suggested, watching her reaction. "That's a great idea," she said, but her voice lacked its usual enthusiasm. "But maybe I'll be a little later. We've got a deadline." Again, Jacob frowned. You said the project was almost ready. Well, almost, but a couple more little things, she coughed. Okay, I have to run. We'll call later. Yeah, sure, he said, and she hung up. Jacob put his phone down, feeling irritation rising inside him. She was holding something back again. He opened their instant messaging and scrolled through the messages from the last few weeks. Nothing out of the ordinary, her usual, don't forget to buy milk and heart emojis. But something about her tone, her evasive answers, was bothering him. That evening, he got home before Emily. The apartment was empty, only the smell of her perfume hung in the air. Jacob threw his briefcase on the couch and went into the kitchen to get some water. Her notebook was lying on the table, the one where she usually jotted down ideas for work. He never rummaged through her things, but today his hand reached out. He opened the book, flipped through a couple of pages with notes on advertising slogans. Nothing interesting, but at the end there was a small piece of paper with a phone number, no name, taped to it. Jacob frowned, took out his phone, and took a picture of the number. It was stupid, but he couldn't stop himself. Emily returned at 7:30 with a bag over her shoulder and a tired smile. Phew, that was one hell of a day, she said, taking off her coat. Did you order pizza? Not yet, I was waiting for you, Jacob replied, watching her put her bag on the floor. How's work? As usual, she shrugged, walking into the kitchen. The boss decided again that everything needs to be redone. Seriously? Jacob crossed his arms. You said he was happy with the project. Well, I was happy, and then I changed my mind. Emily opened the refrigerator and took out a bottle of water. It happens. Yeah, he nodded, but tension was growing inside. Listen, who is Lisa? Lisa? Emily turned around, frowning. Coworker, I told you. Oh, the one who writes to you at 10 o'clock at night, he said, trying to sound joking. Oh, come on, that was a one-time thing, she rolled her eyes. Why are you so picky today? Just curious, Jacob shrugged. You know I love it when you talk about work. Emily smiled, but it was a forced smile. She put the bottle down on the table and walked over to him, wrapping her arms around his waist. You're cute when you're jealous, she said, kissing his chin. But don't get worked up, okay? It's just work, nothing special. I'm not jealous, he said, but he hugged her back. I just want you to be okay. I'm fine, she assured, pulling away. Let's order pizza, I'm starving. They ordered pepperoni, sat down, and Emily began to tell them about some funny customer who wanted their logo to be like Starbucks, but not exactly. Jacob listened, laughed in the right places, but his mind was elsewhere. He watched her eat, the way she casually tucked her hair behind her ear, and tried to figure out what was different. She was the same Emily, cheerful, caring, but something about her demeanor felt foreign. After dinner, they lay down on the couch, turning on a movie. Emily snuggled up to him, but she put her phone next to her, face down. Jacob noticed this, and his heart sank. He wanted to ask directly, but instead he said, Listen, have you ever thought about going back to Iowa? Like visiting old friends, family? Emily tensed, though she tried to hide it. Not really, she replied, not taking her eyes off the screen. It's boring there, and all my friends have gone away. And your mother, he continued. You haven't seen her for a long time. Well, we call each other, she said, shrugging. Maybe we'll go sometime, but right now is not the time. Got it, Jacob nodded, but a spark ignited inside. She always avoided talking about Iowa. Why? That night, he lay awake, listening to her, even breathing. Emily slept with her back to him. Jacob stared at the ceiling, replaying their conversations, her gestures, that number in her address book. He decided he would pay closer attention. If she was hiding something, he would notice. For now, he would just watch her words, her reactions, her phone. It was not his style, but he couldn't just sit there and let the anxiety eat him up from the inside. Jacob Clark woke up on Tuesday with a heavy head. It had been a restless night, tossing and turning, replaying the previous evening in his mind, when Emily had gone back to the bedroom to answer a phone call and returned with a tight smile, muttering something about a colleague. He had stayed up until 2, wondering what to do about his growing suspicions. The coffee he had drunk with breakfast hadn't helped. Emily had already left for work, leaving a note on her desk. "See you tonight, love you." Jacob looked at her neat handwriting and felt the love and worry warring inside him. She was still his Emily, caring, cheerful, but the little things he was starting to notice were starting to add up to an unsettling mosaic. The phone she always kept with her now, the evasive answers she gave about work, and that damn number with no name he'd found in her address book yesterday. He decided it was time to take a closer look. In the morning, while getting ready for the office, Jacob noticed that Emily had left her phone charging in the bedroom. It was strange she hadn't let it out of her hands for the past few weeks. He walked over and looked at the screen. The phone was locked with a password. Jacob frowned. She had never set a password before she said she had nothing to hide. He tried entering her birthday, it didn't work. Then he typed in their wedding anniversary, also a miss. Feeling like an idiot, he put the phone down and went to work, but the moment stuck in his head. In the office, Jacob tried to focus on the paperwork, but his mind kept wandering to Emily. He opened his browser and went to her Instagram. Her profile was the same as always: a few photos from their vacation in Michigan, selfies with coffee, a few posts about work. Nothing suspicious, but he noticed that the older photos, the ones she'd posted before they met, were almost gone. He remembered seeing pictures of her with friends in Iowa a few years ago, but now they were gone. Had she simply cleaned out her account, or was there something she didn't want him to see? "Hey, Clark, you with us?" came the voice of Matt, his colleague, who looked into the office with a stack of papers. Jacob winced, closing the browser. "Oh, yes, in this case," he said, rubbing his eyes. "What is it?" "The client called, wants to meet tomorrow." Matt plopped down in the chair opposite. "Why are you so slow? Didn't you sleep at home again?" "Everything's fine," Jacob waved it off. "I just didn't drink enough coffee." "Well, go see Sally. She's at the coffee shop today." Matt grinned. "By the way, she asked about you." Sally was a barista at the coffee shop across the street where the lawyers from their firm often got coffee. She was in her early 20s, with bright red hair and a habit of talking nonstop. Jacob would occasionally exchange a few words with her, but nothing serious, just friendly chit-chat. She asked. Jacob raised an eyebrow. "What does she want?" "Who knows?" Matt shrugged. "She said you're her favorite customer because you always leave tips. Maybe she wants to adopt you." "Very funny," Jacob chuckled. "Okay, I'll go get some coffee." He walked out of the office and toward the coffee shop. The street was buzzing with cars, people, the smell of hot donuts from the bakery next door. The shop was crowded, but Sally noticed him right away and waved. "Jacob Clark, my hero," she exclaimed, wiping her hands on her apron. "As usual, an Americano with milk." "Yeah, you figured me out," he smiled, approaching the counter. "Just a second, I'll do it now." She started fiddling with the coffee machine. "Look, are you okay? You look like you've been fighting zombies all night." "Ha, just work," he lied. "Why are you so cheerful?" "Energy drinks, my friend," Sally winked. "Plus, I had the day off yesterday, went to a concert. Have you ever listened to indie rock?" Um, is that where everyone's screaming and twitching?" he teased. "Ugh, you're so boring," she laughed, setting the coffee in front of him. "Seriously, you need to shake things up. Come to a concert sometime, I'll enlighten you." "Maybe sometime," Jacob said, taking the cup. "Thanks, Sally." "You're welcome, my beloved lawyer," she shouted after him. Chatting with Sally had lightened his mood a bit, but back at the office, Jacob was back to thinking about Emily. He opened her Facebook, and the same minimalism. A few posts about a charity run she'd run, a photo of him at their anniversary. Nothing from the past. He even checked her friends list, but it was mostly coworkers and a few people he knew from Chicago. No one from Iowa. That was weird, because she'd said she still had friends there. By lunchtime, he decided to call her. Emily answered quickly, but her voice was tense. "Hey, where are you?" Jacob asked, trying to sound relaxed. At work, in the conference room, she replied. And you? In the office, drinking Sally's coffee, he said. Listen, are you free tonight? Maybe we could go somewhere? Oh, I guess it won't work out today, she said. We have an urgent project here that needs to be finished. Again, he frowned. You said yesterday that you were almost finished. Well, almost, but the boss added more tasks. She cleared her throat. Sorry, Jay, I'll try to be early. Okay, he said, irritation bubbling inside him. Just let me know when you're home. Of course I love you, she said and hung up. Jacob put down his phone and clenched his fists. She was holding something back again. He remembered how she had come home at 9 last week, citing a client meeting. But did marketers meet clients that late? He started running through their conversations over the past month. She had become evasive about details, answering in generalities. Work, coworkers, deadline. That wasn't like her. After work, he stopped at the supermarket to buy groceries for dinner. Emily wasn't home yet. He started cooking just pasta and sauce, nothing complicated. While he was chopping tomatoes, his gaze fell on her bag, which she had left on a chair. The phone was on top, face down. Jacob froze. He knew he shouldn't, but his hands reached out. He picked up the phone, tried to unlock it the password. Feeling like a traitor, he put it back. Emily returned at 8, tired but smiling. Oh, you're cooking, she exclaimed, walking into the kitchen. It smells great. I'm trying, Jacob said, stirring the sauce. How's your day? Oh, don't ask, she sighed, sitting down at the table. The boss has lined everyone up again. Yes, and what about this time? He turned, watching her. It's nothing, she shrugged. He wants us to redo the whole campaign. The one you did last week? He asked. Yeah, she nodded, but her gaze slid to the side. Listen, I'm going to shower, okay? I'm dying of fatigue. She left, and Jacob stood at the stove. Her answers sounded rehearsed. He remembered how she always talked about work in detail, funny stories about clients, gossip about colleagues. But now nothing concrete. He decided it was time to dig deeper. Emily was more cheerful at dinner, telling him about the new intern who spilled coffee on her boss. Jacob laughed, but mentally analyzed every word. After dinner, they sat down to watch a series, and he noticed that she had put her phone down next to her again, face down. Listen, what's wrong with your phone? He asked, trying to sound casual. Do you have a password now? Emily looked at him, frowning slightly. Oh, yes, I did, she said. At work, they asked me to make sure the data didn't leak. Seriously, he raised an eyebrow. What, you have state secrets there? Ha, something like that, she laughed, but it was a nervous laugh. Just a security measure. I understand, he nodded, but everything inside him clenched. That night, when Emily was asleep, Jacob lay and stared at the ceiling. He decided that he couldn't just wait. Tomorrow he would check her laptop, maybe find something in her email or messengers. And that number from her address book, he had to find out whose it was. He felt like a spy, but he couldn't help it. If Emily was hiding something, he had to know the truth. Jacob Clark sat in his office, staring at the unfinished contract, but his mind was elsewhere. For the past few days, all he had done was look for signs that Emily was hiding something. Her evasive answers, her phone with the password, the strange lateness of her work hours, it was all driving him crazy. Yesterday, he had found an empty personal folder on her laptop, even though she had previously kept photos of them together there. It was a small thing, but it added fuel to the fire. He couldn't just watch anymore. He needed facts. The idea of hiring a private detective came to him one night, as he lay awake listening to Emily breathe. It seemed like an extreme move, almost a betrayal, but he didn't know how else to figure it out. In the morning, he searched the internet for local detectives and came across the website of one Mark Reynolds, a former cop with 20 years of experience who was now working for himself. The reviews were normal, nothing out of the ordinary, but not a scam either. Jacob wrote down the number and decided to call at lunch. At noon, he left the office and headed to a nearby park so no one would overhear. He dialed Mark's number, feeling his palms sweat. After the third ring, a low, slightly hoarse voice answered. "Reynolds," the man said. "Hello, this is Jacob Clark," Jacob began, trying to sound confident. "I found your site. I need help." "What kind of help?" Mark asked, without unnecessary emotion. "I want you to follow a person. My wife," Jacob hesitated. "I have a suspicion that she's, well, maybe not being entirely honest with me." "I see," Mark said, as if it were routine. "What exactly is bothering you?" "She's been acting weird." Jacob lowered his voice, looking around. "She stays late at work, hides her phone, answers evasively. I found a number in her address book, no name. I want to know who she talks to and where she goes." "Okay," Mark coughed. "This is a standard job. I need her name, photo, schedule, address where she works. The more details, the better." "I can send everything," Jacob said. "How much will it cost?" "Depends on the volume," Mark replied. "Basic surveillance is $500 a week, plus expenses if I have to travel somewhere. Reports every day, photos if I find anything. If you need correspondence, it's more expensive, and I can't guarantee I'll get it." "Agreed," Jacob nodded, although his insides sank. "When can you start?" "As soon as I get the details and the deposit," Mark said. "Let's meet and discuss the details. Would today at 4 be okay? There's a cafe on the corner of Wabash and Madison called Roaster." "Yes, I will," Jacob said. "Thank you." "You're welcome," Mark chuckled and hung up. Jacob returned to the office, feeling both guilty and determined. He opened his email and began gathering information. Emily's full name, their apartment address, her workplace, a marketing agency downtown. He had several photos of her on his phone, picked out a couple of recent ones, and added a description of her car, a silver Honda Civic. He sent it all to Mark, along with a PayPal transfer for $500. When he was done, he sat back in his chair, trying to convince himself that this was the right thing to do. At 4, he walked into the Roaster, a small cafe with wooden tables and the smell of freshly brewed coffee. Mark was already there, sitting in the corner with a mug of black coffee. He was about 50, with short gray hair and a plain blue shirt. Nothing like a Hollywood detective, just an ordinary guy who could be your uncle. "Jacob," Mark looked up, holding out his hand. "Yes." Jacob shook his hand and sat down opposite. "Are you Mark?" "That's it." Mark nodded, sipping his coffee. "I got the data. Everything is clear. Tell me in more detail what's bothering you." "Well," Jacob rubbed his neck. "She's changed. About a month ago, she started staying late at work, almost every day. She says it's a project, but I'm not sure. Her phone has a password now. It didn't used to. And I've seen her close her messages when I'm around." "Got it." Mark took out a small notebook and started writing. "Anything else? Maybe she mentioned someone new. Friends, colleagues?" "No, nothing like that." Jacob shook his head. "She doesn't talk much about work these days. She used to tell me everything in detail, but now she just talks in general terms. And this number," he showed a photo of a piece of paper from Emily's notebook. "I don't know whose it is." "Okay, I'll check." Mark nodded. "What about her habits? Where does she go besides work and home?" "Sometimes he goes to the gym, to yoga," Jacob said. "He likes the cafe nearby, Bean House. He meets his friend Kate sometimes, but not often." "Okay," Mark wrote down. "I'll start today. I'll track where she goes, who she meets. If I see anything unusual, I'll take a photo. Texting is more difficult, but I'll see what I can do." "Thank you," Jacob said, feeling a lump in his throat. "It's just, I want to know the truth." "I understand." Mark looked at him without judgment. "It's not fun, but it's better to know than to guess. I'll send the first report tomorrow evening." "Agreed," Jacob nodded. "If something is urgent, call." "No problem." Mark finished his coffee and stood up. "Hang in there, Jacob." Jacob came home around 6. Emily was in the kitchen, cutting vegetables for a salad. She smiled when she saw him, but he noticed that her hands were shaking slightly. "Hi, you're early," she said, wiping her hands on a towel. "How's your day?" "It's fine," he replied, putting his briefcase on the floor. "And you?" "Oh, as usual," she shrugged. "The boss is chasing everyone away again. Do you want some wine?" I opened the bottle. "Yes, go ahead," he nodded, watching her take out the glasses. They sat down at the table, and Emily began to tell them about a new client who wanted something viral, but not too viral. Jacob listened, but his thoughts were on Mark. He imagined him already following Emily, maybe even now. Guilt warred with resolve. He wanted to trust her, but he couldn't. "Why are you so quiet?" Emily asked, sipping her wine. "Are you tired?" "Yeah, it was a tough day," he lied. "The client was annoying." "Poor thing," she reached out and squeezed his hand. "Maybe tomorrow we can take a day off. Go to the park like before." "Sounds cool," he said, forcing a smile. "Only without your pillows." "Hey, my pillows are art," she protested, and they both laughed. After dinner, they lay down on the couch, turning on some TV series. Emily snuggled up to him, but she put her phone down next to her again, face down. Jacob noticed this, but said nothing. He decided to wait for news from Mark. If she was honest, he would apologize to himself for these suspicions. If not, he didn't want to think about it. The next day, late in the afternoon, Mark texted, "Got something. Meet me at the roaster at 7. Jacob said, "Yes," and felt his heart pound. At 7, he was sitting in the cafe, watching Mark lay out some photographs on the table. "It was yesterday," Mark said, showing the picture. "She was in a cafe on Lake Street, not the Bean House. There was a guy with her, about 30, with dark hair. They were there for an hour." Jacob picked up the photo. Emily was sitting at a table, across from a man he'd never seen. They weren't touching, but her face was tense. "Who is he?" Jacob asked, trying to keep his voice even. "I don't know yet," Mark said, "but I'll find out. I also checked that number in the address book. It's registered to someone in Iowa, but I can't get the name yet. Give me a couple of days." "Okay," Jacob nodded, clutching the photo. "What next?" "I'll keep watching," Mark said. "I'll try to eavesdrop if they meet again, and I'll look for access to her messages, but it won't be quick." "Do what you have to do," Jacob said. "I want to know everything." He left the cafe, feeling his insides boiling. Emily with some guy, in a cafe she hadn't mentioned. He shoved the photo in his pocket and decided not to ask her anything for now. But now he was sure it wasn't paranoia, his intuition had been right. Jacob Clark sat at his desk in his office, staring at a stack of paperwork, but not seeing a line. His mind was occupied with the conversation he'd had with Mark, the private detective he'd hired to follow Emily the day before. The photo of her sitting in a cafe with a strange man burned into his memory. Mark had promised to find out who it was, and this morning he'd sent a text. "Any news? Call me at 11? Jacob had said yes, but now, as he waited for the call, his stomach tightened. He wasn't prepared for what he might find out, but it was too late to back out. Emily had been her usual self that morning, making him coffee, kissing him before he left for work, even joking that he was too serious for a Friday morning. Jacob smiled back, but inside he was seething. How could she be so calm if she was dating someone behind his back? He remembered her sitting on the couch last night, leafing through a magazine, not even glancing at her phone when it lit up with a notification. It was weird she always grabbed it before. Maybe she knew he was suspicious. He pushed the thoughts away, trying to focus on his work. At 11 a.m. the phone rang. Jacob closed the office door and answered. "Mark, what's wrong?" he asked, trying to sound calm. "Good morning, Jacob." Mark's voice was businesslike, with a slight hoarseness. "I found out who that guy was. His name is Ryan Holt, 32, originally from Iowa, like your wife. Now lives in Chicago, works for a construction company." "Iowa," Jacob frowned, clutching his pen. She never mentioned Ryan. Had they dated before? "It looks like it," Mark said. "I found old social media posts Photos of them together from college. They were definitely close, but I don't know how close. That's not all. I dug into her past, and it's, well, not what you'd expect. What do you mean, not that? Jacob felt his throat go dry. Emily was active in her youth. Mark chose his words carefully. Parties, get-togethers, lots of guys. Not a couple of affairs, like she told you. I found people who went to school with her, and they confirmed. She was the life of the party, never missed a party. A lot of guys? Jacob swallowed. How many? There is no exact number, Mark said. But we are talking about dozens of acquaintances, not always serious. She did not advertise it, but did not hide it then either. Oh my God, Jacob leaned back in his chair, feeling the blood pounding in his temples. Are you sure? Yes, Mark replied. I can send you screenshots if you want. Old posts, comments. Nothing criminal, just a different way of life. Here we go, Jacob said, trying to keep his voice even. What else about Ryan? They meet regularly, Mark said. They were at that cafe again yesterday. I took a couple of pictures. She looks tense, like she doesn't want to be there. I'm working on finding out what they're talking about. Okay, Jacob rubbed his forehead. Go on. I need to know everything. It will be done, Mark said. Expect a photo in an hour. Jacob hung up and stared at the wall. Emily, his Emily, who had told him about two discreet romances in high school and college, was so different. Parties, dozens of boyfriends. He remembered her telling him on their first anniversary that she had never been one for parties and preferred quiet evenings at home. He believed her because she seemed sincere and her life in Chicago was so normal. How could he not have noticed? The phone beeped. Mark had sent screenshots and photos. Jacob opened them, his hands shaking. One was of Emily, in her 20s, hugging a guy at a party. She was laughing, holding a plastic cup. The caption, "Who turned off the lights?" The comments were full of jokes from unfamiliar names. Another photo showed her dancing at a bar, next to another guy. Jacob clenched his jaw. It was her, but not the Emily he knew. Mark's new pictures showed her at a cafe with Ryan. He was skinny, with short dark hair, wearing a plain t-shirt. Emily sat across from him, staring at the table, her fingers fiddling with her napkin. Jacob zoomed in, trying to figure out what was going on. They didn't look like lovers, but why was she there? Why hadn't she told him? He decided to take a break and went to a coffee shop across the street. Back at the office, Jacob tried to work, but he couldn't. He opened the screenshots again, rereading the comments under Emily's old photos. "Where did you lose your shoe, Em?" someone wrote. "Party queen," another added. It was like another world, where his wife was a stranger. He remembered how she always avoided talking about college, changing the subject to something else. Now he understood why. After work, stopped by the gym to blow off some steam, where he met Joe, a guy from the office next door who he sometimes chatted with. "Hey, Clark, haven't seen you in a while," Joe said, wiping the sweat from his face. "So, are you pumping up your biceps for the wife?" "Huh, something like that," Jacob chuckled, setting the bar down. "Just need to warm up." "I understand," Joe nodded. "My head is boiling after work, only iron saves me. How is Emily?" "Okay," Jacob said without going into details. "Works a lot." "Yeah, marketing is a pain in the ass," Joe said. "My sister's in it, always whining about deadlines." "Yeah, that sounds familiar," Jacob nodded, moving over to the exercise machine. The conversation with Joe was easy, but Jacob was barely listening. He was thinking about Emily, about Ryan, about her past. After the gym, he came home. Emily was in the living room, scrolling through something on her laptop. "Hi, where have you been?" she asked, smiling. "I thought you'd run away." "At the gym," he said, throwing down his bag. "How's your day?" "Oh, don't ask," she rolled her eyes. "The client wants to redo everything again." Seriously, he sat down next to her, watching her. "What kind of client is he?" "Some kind of startup," she shrugged. "They want advertising, but they don't know what they want. Yeah, he nodded, feeling himself boiling inside. She was speaking in generalities again. They ordered Thai food and ate, chatting about nothing. Emily told him about a colleague who dropped a cake at a company party, and Jacob laughed, but his mind was elsewhere. He looked at her smile, her gestures, and tried to understand how she could lie to him for so many years. Her past, which he knew nothing about, now stood between them like a wall. And this Ryan, who is he to her? Why is she dating him? After dinner, they lay down on the couch, turning on some movies. Emily snuggled up to him, but Jacob couldn't relax. Jacob Clark sat on the couch in his apartment, clutching a mug of cold coffee. It was Saturday morning, and Emily had gone out to meet a friend, as she said, though Jacob no longer believed a word she said. He had been living in a fog for the past few days, ever since Mark, the private investigator, had told him about Emily's turbulent past and her encounters with Ryan Holt, the guy from Iowa. Last night, Mark had texted, "Got some serious stuff. Meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. at the roster." Jacob had agreed, but now, as he waited for the meeting, he felt his insides boil. He didn't know what to expect, but he was sure it wasn't going to be good news. Emily had left an hour ago, kissing him on the cheek and promising to be back for dinner. She looked like her usual self, smiling and joking about Kate's friend whining about her boyfriend again. But Jacob had noticed her quickly shoving her phone into her bag, as if she were afraid he'd see the screen. He hadn't said anything, just nodded, but inside he was torn. How could she lie so calmly? He stood up and paced the room, trying to calm himself down. He needed to wait for Mark. What he needed was facts. At 9:50, he left his house and headed to the roaster. The street was busy Saturday night walkers, kids on scooters, the smell of fresh croissants from the bakery. Jacob walked into the cafe, ordered a black coffee, and sat in the corner where he usually met Mark. The detective arrived 5 minutes later with the same folder under his arm. His face was serious, but not overly dramatic. "Jacob," Mark nodded, sitting down opposite him. "You don't look so good." "I haven't slept," Jacob said, sipping his coffee. "What's up?" "Bad news." Mark opened the folder and pulled out a few photos. "Here, look. This was yesterday, around 6 o'clock. They were at the Midtown Hotel on the South Loop." Jacob picked up the photo, his heart sinking. It showed Emily and Ryan walking into the hotel lobby. She was looking down, her face tense, and Ryan was walking beside her, his hand in his pocket. The next photo showed them getting into the elevator. Jacob clenched his jaw, trying not to show his emotions. "Did they rent a room?" he asked, his voice shaking. "Yes," Mark nodded. "I couldn't go inside, but they were there for 2 hours. They came out separately. She drove away in her car." "Damn," Jacob threw the photo on the table. "Is this really her?" "Exactly," Mark said. "I checked through the hotel cameras, and one more thing." He pulled out his call log. Jacob scanned the list dozens of calls between Emily and Ryan's number over the past 2 weeks, some lasting 20 minutes. "They talk a lot," Mark said. "I couldn't get the records of the calls, but it's not just a couple of calls." "What are they doing at the hotel?" Jacob looked at Mark, although he was afraid of the answer. "I don't know exactly," Mark shrugged. "But I found out why she's dating him. Ryan is blackmailing her." "Blackmailing?" Jacob frowned. "With what?" "Her past," Mark said. "I talked to a guy who knew them in Iowa. Ryan's threatening to tell you about her. Shall we say, active youth. She seems afraid you'll find out, and she's going along with his terms." "Conditions," Jacob clenched his fists. "So she sleeps with him to keep him quiet." "It seems so," Mark nodded. "She doesn't seem happy at these meetings. More like she's forced to." "Oh my God," Jacob rubbed his face with his hands. "Why the hell didn't she tell me?" Mark shrugged, sipping his coffee. "People are afraid," he said, "especially when they think the truth will destroy them." "That's no excuse," Jacob snapped. "She's my wife. She should have come to me, not this." "Agreed." Mark looked at him without judgment. "What do you want to do next? I can keep watching, trying to get more. Yeah, go ahead, Jacob said. But I want to know everything. If she's seeing anyone else, if there are other calls, everything. Got it. Mark closed the folder. I'll contact you tomorrow. Hang in there, Jacob. Jacob walked out of the cafe, rage raging inside him. Emily was cheating on him. Not just dating some guy, but going to a hotel with him because he was threatening to expose her past. He remembered her talking about her boring life in Iowa, the two guys she loved. All lies. And now she was sleeping with this Ryan guy to keep that lie alive. He clenched his fists, fighting the urge to call her right now and spill the beans. No, he had to think. He couldn't act on emotion. He decided to take a walk to clear his head. He went into a nearby bookstore, hoping to take his mind off things. There he met Sarah, an acquaintance from law school who now worked at a nearby firm. "Jacob Clark, how old are you?" Sarah exclaimed, holding up a book on psychology. "Are you reading now, and not just laws?" "Ha, I'm trying," he said, forcing a smile. "What are you doing here?" "Looking for a present for my sister," Sarah shrugged. "She's obsessed with all things self-improvement. How are you? How's Emily?" "It's okay," he lied, feeling a lump in his throat. "She's busy with work." "Oh, I know that feeling," Sarah rolled her eyes. "My husband always whines about me being at the office too. Listen, you and Emily should come over for dinner sometime." "Yeah, that sounds cool," Jacob said, even though he knew it wouldn't happen. "I'll talk to her." "Agreed," Sarah smiled. "Don't disappear, Clark." The conversation with Sarah had been easy, but Jacob was barely holding himself together. He bought a book without even looking at the cover and went out. Outside, he sat on a bench, watching the people pass by. His thoughts were all over Emily. He imagined her walking into the hotel with Ryan, going up to their room. The anger flared up again, but he forced himself to breathe deeply. He couldn't lose his temper now. He needed to gather all the facts before he could talk to her. When he got home, he found Emily in the kitchen, chopping fruit for a smoothie and humming. She smiled when she saw him. "Oh, you're here," she said, wiping her hands. "I thought you'd be late." "I decided to come back early," he said, putting his bag with the book on the table. "How was your meeting?" "With Kate?" She shrugged. "As usual, she whined about her boyfriend for half an hour. Then we had coffee. And what did you do?" "I was walking," he lied, watching her. "I went into a bookstore." "Oh, cool," she nodded, pouring the smoothie into a glass. "Want some? I made one with mango." "No, thanks," he said, feeling everything boiling inside. He watched her drink her smoothie, trying to find the Emily he loved in her. She had lied to him not just about her past, but about where she had been today. He knew she hadn't been seeing Kate. Mark would have told him if she'd been at a coffee shop with a friend. Instead, she was probably seeing Ryan again. Jacob clenched his jaw, fighting the urge to spill the beans right now. "Listen, do you want to go to Iowa sometime?" he asked suddenly, deciding to test her reaction. Emily froze, then placed the glass on the table. "To Iowa?" She frowned. "Why? There's nothing interesting there." "Well, to see your family," he said, looking into her eyes. "You haven't been home for a long time." "Yeah, maybe sometime," she shrugged, but her voice became quieter. "No time for that now, work and all that." "I understand," he nodded, feeling his anger growing. She changed the subject, talking about a new project at work, but Jacob barely listened. He was thinking about the hotel photos, the calls, the blackmail. Emily kept talking as if nothing was happening, which infuriated him even more. How could she be like this? He wanted to grab her by the shoulders, shake her, ask why she hadn't come to him when Ryan had started threatening. But instead he just nodded, pretending to listen. After dinner, they decided to watch a movie. Emily chose a comedy, but Jacob couldn't concentrate. He sat there, staring at the screen, wondering what to do. Part of him wanted to immediately start a showdown to post all the photos and printouts. But the other part of him, the part that still loved Emily, said he had to be careful. If he made a mistake, if Mark messed up, he would ruin their marriage for nothing. He decided to wait until Mark had more evidence. But the rage, mixed with pain, did not go away. "Why are you so thoughtful?" Emily asked, nudging him with her elbow. "Didn't you enjoy the movie?" "No, it's normal," he lied, forcing himself to smile. "It's just tiring." "Poor thing," she snuggled into him. "Maybe tomorrow we can have a lazy day, just lie around and eat pizza." "We'll see," he said, feeling her touch both warm and repulsive. That night he lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Emily was asleep next to him, her hand on his chest. He looked at her and wondered how it had come to this. His wife was cheating on him because some creep from her past was threatening to expose the truth. Jacob Clark hadn't slept all night. He'd been lying on the living room couch, staring at the ceiling, while Emily slept in their bedroom. The file of evidence from Mark, the private investigator, sat on the coffee table. Photos of Emily with Ryan at the hotel, transcripts of their calls, screenshots of her old college posts. Every word Mark said was running through his head. Emily was cheating on him with Ryan because he was blackmailing her by threatening to tell on her turbulent past. Jacob felt the anger and pain mingle, tearing him apart inside. She'd lied to him for years, not just about her past, but about what was happening now. He couldn't keep quiet any longer. Last night, after dinner, he had been barely able to restrain himself from spilling the beans. Emily had been chatting about work, laughing at a joke from a TV show, and he had looked at her and seen a strange woman. Her smile, which had once been warm, now seemed like a mask. He had gone to bed silently, citing fatigue, but instead of going to bed, he had settled on the couch. He needed time to think about how to approach the conversation. He didn't want to yell or lose his temper. That would only confuse things. He wanted the truth, straight from her mouth, and he was going to get it. That morning, around 6, Jacob got up, made coffee, and sat at the kitchen table with a folder. He opened it, flipping through the photos. Emily and Ryan in the lobby of the Midtown Hotel, she looking down, he walking beside her, confident. Another photo of them in the elevator, her hands clasped. The call logs showed that they spoke almost every day, sometimes for half an hour. Jacob clenched his jaw, remembering Emily saying she was calling her mom or a coworker. Lie after lie. He took out a notebook and began writing questions. Simple, clear, so she wouldn't be able to avoid answering them. Why had she hidden her past? When had the blackmail started? Why had she gone to Ryan instead of telling him? What had happened at the hotel? He wrote, trying to keep his emotions under control, but his hand was shaking. Part of him wanted to believe that she would explain everything, that there had been some kind of mistake. But the other part of him, the part that had seen the evidence, knew there had been no mistake. Emily woke up around 8. He heard her moving around the bedroom, then footsteps in the hallway. She came into the kitchen, wearing cat pajamas, her hair disheveled. "Good morning," she said, yawning. "Why are you up so early?" Jacob closed the folder, looking at her. "I couldn't sleep," he replied, his voice even, but inside he was seething. "Would you like some coffee?" "Yeah," she nodded, sitting down at the table. "Are you okay? You look, I don't know, tense." "It's just the way things are today," he lied, pouring her coffee. "Listen, we need to talk." "Talk?" she frowned, taking the mug. "About what?" "About something serious," he said, looking into her eyes. "This evening, when you get back." Okay," she shrugged, but her smile faltered. "Did something happen?" "Just be home by 7, he said, standing up. "I'm going to the office to finish some work." Emily looked at him, but didn't argue. "Okay, I will," she said. "Are you sure everything is okay?" "I'm sure," he replied, taking the folder and going into the hallway. He didn't go to the office. Instead, he drove to the park to clear his head. Sitting on a bench, he opened the folder again, rereading his questions. He imagined how Emily would respond, defend herself, cry, maybe even lie more. He knew he had to be prepared for anything. Part of him wanted to just leave, pack his things, and never see her again, but he loved her. or at least he loved the Emily he knew before this week. Now he wasn't sure who she really was. At lunchtime, he stopped at a diner to get something to eat. There he met Tom, an old friend from college who now worked at a bank. Tom was sitting at the counter, scrolling through his phone. "Jacob, damn it," Tom exclaimed when he saw him. "What, are you hanging out in diners now?" "Ha, sometimes," Jacob said, sitting down next to him. "How are you?" The usual, Tom shrugged. "Work, mortgage, boredom. And you? How's Emily?" "It's fine," Jacob lied, ordering a burger. "She's busy, as usual." "You're lucky," Tom said, sipping his cola. "My last girlfriend ran away because I was too predictable. Can you believe that?" "Seriously?" Jacob chuckled. "Maybe she just didn't appreciate your charm." "Yeah, right," Tom laughed. "Listen, you and Emily should stop by my place sometime. I've got a new grill. I can grill some steaks." "We'll see," Jacob said, feeling a lump in his throat. "We've got a lot on our plate right now." "I understand," Tom nodded, "but don't disappear, brother." The conversation with Tom had been easy, but Jacob was barely holding himself together. He ate his burger, thinking about how he would confront Emily. He decided to speak calmly, without shouting. Post photos, printouts, give her a chance to explain. If she lied, he would leave. If she confessed, he didn't know what he would do. When he got home, he laid out the evidence on the kitchen table. Photos, call logs, screenshots of her old posts. He looked at them, feeling the pain eating away at him from the inside. Emily had been lying to him from the start about her past, about Ryan, about what was happening now. He remembered how she'd blushed when she told him about her first boyfriend in high school, how he'd come to believe she was practically a saint. Now he saw only betrayal. Emily returned at 6:50, dropping her bag in the hallway. She walked into the kitchen, smiling. "Hi, I'm home," she said, taking off her coat. "Why are you so serious?" Jacob sat at his desk, a folder in front of him. He looked at it, trying to keep his voice even. "Sit down, Emily," he said. "We need to talk." "Okay," she frowned, sitting down opposite him. "What's going on? You're scaring me." He opened the folder and posted the first photo, she and Ryan in the hotel lobby. Emily froze, her face turning pale. "What is it?" she asked, her voice shaking. "You know what this is," Jacob said, posting the next photo of them in the elevator. "And this one too." "Jacob, she paused, looking at the pictures. "Wait," he raised his hand, pulling out the call logs. "Here are your calls with Ryan, dozens over 2 weeks. And here," he threw down screenshots of her old posts, "is your past, the one you never told me about." Emily looked at the papers, her eyes filling with tears. She covered her mouth with her hand, shaking her head. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. "It doesn't matter," Jacob said, looking her in the eye. "I know Ryan is blackmailing you, threatening to tell me about your past. And you went to the hotel with him to keep him quiet. Is that true?" "Jacob, please," she sobbed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to." "True or not?" His voice became harsher. "Just tell me." "Yes," she breathed out, covering her face with her hands. "It's true." Jacob felt something inside him snap. He had been expecting it, but hearing it hurt more than he thought. "Why?" he asked, trying not to lose his temper. "Why didn't you come to me?" "I was afraid." She looked up, her eyes full of tears. "I thought if you found out who I was, you'd leave. I couldn't lose you." "And you decided to sleep with him?" Jacob clenched his fists. "Instead of talking to me?" "It's not true." She shook her head. "I didn't want to. He made me. He said he would tell you everything, show you the photos, all those old posts. I panicked." "Panicked?" He raised his voice. "Emily, you are my wife. You were supposed to come to me, not run to that bastard. I know," she sobbed, wiping away her tears. "I know I messed everything up. But I love you, Jacob. I did it to save us." He looked at her, anger battling with pain. She looked so lost, but that didn't change the facts. She had lied to him for years, and now she had cheated on him, albeit under duress. He wanted to believe that she loved him, but how could he trust him after that? When did this start? He asked, his voice growing quieter. 3 months ago, she said, lowering her head. He found me on social media, wrote to me. I tried to ignore him, but he wouldn't let up. Then he started threatening me. And you went to him? Jacob nodded, as if confirming to himself. How many times? 5, she whispered. I hated it, Jacob. Every time I wanted to tell you, but you didn't, he finished. Instead, you kept lying. Emily was crying, her shoulders shaking. She reached out her hand, but he pulled away. Please, she said. I'll do anything to make it right. I won't see him again, I swear. Isrul, he looked at her, his eyes burning. You've been lying to me from the start. About your past, about Ryan, about everything. How can I trust you? I love you, she repeated, sobbing. It was a mistake, I was stupid, but I don't want to lose you. I don't know what to do now, he said, standing up. I need time. He gathered up the folder and went into the bedroom, closing the door. Emily sat at the table, crying. Jacob lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. He had the truth, but it brought no relief, only pain and emptiness. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew their marriage would never be the same. Jacob Clark sat at the kitchen table, looking at Emily, who was still wiping away tears from his confrontation the night before. The night before, he had laid out the evidence of her cheating on her with Ryan Holt hotel photos, phone records, screenshots of her tumultuous college past. She had confessed that Ryan had blackmailed her, threatening to tell Jacob about her life in Iowa, full of parties and casual hookups. Emily had begged him to forgive her, but Jacob had gone to sleep in the living room, unable to stand her. He had spent the night replaying her words, her tears, but the anger and pain had only grown. He could not forgive not only the betrayal, but the years of lies about who she was. Sunday morning was quiet. Emily walked into the kitchen around 9, wearing an old sweater, her eyes red from crying. Jacob was drinking coffee, the folder of evidence lying closed in front of him. He knew that today would be the day. He didn't want to wait any longer, no explanations, no excuses. He needed to tell her how he felt and put an end to it. Emily stopped in the doorway, looking at him. Can I sit down? She asked quietly, her voice hoarse. Sit down, Jacob said without looking up. She sat down opposite him, her hands clasped on the table. Silence hung between them, heavy as a concrete wall. Emily cleared her throat, trying to begin. Jacob, I've been thinking all night, she said. I know what I did, and I'm so ashamed. I want to make it right. Fix it? He looked at her, his voice cold. Emily, do you realize what you've done? I know, she nodded, her eyes filling with tears again. I was an idiot. I should have told you about Ryan, about everything. I was so afraid of losing you. You were afraid? Jacob squeezed his mug. And that's why you lied to me for 3 years? And when that bastard started blackmailing you, you went to his hotel instead of coming to me. Emily lowered her head, her fingers fiddling with the hem of her sweater. I didn't mean to, she whispered. He said he had photos, old posts, that he would show you everything. I panicked. I thought if I did what he wanted, he would leave me alone. Do what he wants? Jacob raised his voice. Emily, you slept with him. 5 times, you said it yourself. This is not panic, this is a choice. I know, she sniffled, wiping her cheeks. I hated myself every time. I didn't mean to, I swear. I didn't know what to do. You didn't know? He leaned forward, looking into her eyes. You could have come to me, said, Jacob, this guy is threatening me, help me. And we could have solved it together. But you chose to lie and sleep with him. Emily covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. I thought you wouldn't forgive me if you knew who I was, she said, her voice shaking. All those parties, the boys. I'm not like that anymore. I changed when I met you. This isn't about your past, Jacob said, trying to keep his voice even. I'm no saint, Emily. I had a past, too, and I told you everything. But you've been lying to me since day one. 2 affairs, seriously, and in reality, dozens of guys, parties you never even mentioned. I was ashamed, she looked up, her eyes full of tears. I didn't want you to think badly of me. You're so right, Jacob. I was afraid you wouldn't want me if you found out. Right? He chuckled, shaking his head. I loved you. I didn't care how many boyfriends you had. But you didn't give me a chance to prove it. You decided for me that I couldn't handle the truth. Emily cried, wiping her tears with her sleeve. I know I screwed up, she said, but I love you. You're the best thing I ever had. I'd do anything to make you believe me. Trust me. Jacob looked at her, feeling his insides tighten. How can I trust you? You lied to me for 3 years about your past. And now that Ryan started blackmailing me, you lied even more. You looked me in the eye, smiled, and then drove to his hotel. It wasn't like that, she shook her head. I didn't want him. I did it to protect us. Protect? He slammed his fist on the table, the mug jumping. You destroyed us, Emily. Do you think I can forget how you went to him? How have you lied to me every day? She flinched, but did not look away. I don't expect you to forget, she said, but I want to try. We can go to a psychologist. I'll tell you anything you want. I won't see Ryan again, I swear. A psychologist? Jacob shook his head. Emily, this isn't about Ryan. This is about you. You don't trust me. If you'd come to me when he started threatening, we could have found a way out. Together, but you chose him. I didn't choose him, she almost screamed. I chose us. I thought if you found out, you'd leave. And that's why you did everything to make me leave, he said, his voice growing quieter. You yourself destroyed our marriage. Emily closed her eyes, tears streaming down her cheeks. She reached out her hand, but Jacob pulled away. Please, she whispered, give me a chance. I'll do anything. I gave you a chance, he said. I trusted you for 3 years, and you lied to me every day. I can't do this anymore. What are you saying? Her voice trembled. You want to break up. I'm filing for divorce, Jacob said, looking into her eyes. I can't live with someone who doesn't trust me. Emily froze, her face turning white. Divorce, she whispered. Jacob, no, please don't. I've already decided, he said, standing up. This isn't about your past. This is about you lying to me, cheating on me, instead of being honest. I can't forgive that. But I love you, she jumped up, grabbing his hand. You can't just leave. We can fix this. Fix it. He pulled his hand away. Emily, you ruined everything. Do you think I can forget how you went to him? How did you look me in the eye and lie? I didn't mean to, she sobbed, pressing her hands to her chest. I was desperate. I didn't know what to do. You knew, he said, his voice icy. You could have come to me, but you chose to lie. He turned to leave, but Emily grabbed his sleeve. Please, she said, her voice breaking. I'll do whatever you say. I'll leave if I have to. I'll talk to Ryan, tell him to get lost. Just don't go. It's not about Ryan, Jacob repeated, looking at her. It's about us. About you not trusting me. I can't live with that. But I trust you, she almost screamed. I made a mistake. A mistake? He shook his head. You lied to me for 3 years. It's not a mistake, it's a choice. Emily let go of his sleeve, falling back into the chair. She was crying, her face in her hands. Jacob looked at her, feeling the pain tearing at him from the inside. He had loved her, or at least he had loved the Emily he knew. But now all he saw was lies, betrayal, and it was unbearable. I'll talk to my lawyer this week, he said, his voice even. We'll do this without a fight. I don't want to hate you, Emily, but I can't be with you. Jacob, please, she looked up, her eyes full of tears. Don't do this. We can start over. No, he said, shaking his head. We can't. He took the folder and walked into the living room, closing the door. Emily stayed in the kitchen, her sobs echoing through the apartment. Jacob sat down on the couch, feeling numb inside. He had done what he had to do, but it hadn't brought him any relief, only emptiness and pain. He knew divorce was the only way out, but that didn't mean it was easy. He loved her, despite everything, and that love made the decision even harder. Around noon, he decided to go out to take his mind off things. He went to a nearby pizzeria where he sometimes ate lunch with colleagues. There he met Ben, a guy who worked in the office next door and sometimes played poker with him. "Hey, Clark, why are you alone?" Ben asked, holding a slice of pizza. "Where's your hottie?" "At home," Jacob lied, sitting down at the table. "I decided to eat in silence." "I understand," Ben nodded, chewing. "Sometimes you need to get away from everyone. Listen, the guys and I are playing next week. Will you come?" "Maybe," Jacob said, ordering pizza. "There's a lot to do right now." "Well, don't get too caught up in your work," Ben said. "Otherwise, you'll end up like my boss, always gloomy." The conversation with Ben was trivial, but Jacob was grateful for the distraction. He ate pizza, listening to Ben complain about the new tax bill, and tried not to think about Emily. But her tear-stained face was in his mind. He knew he had done the right thing, but that didn't mean it didn't hurt. When he returned home, he found Emily in the bedroom, packing her things into a bag. When she saw him, she froze. I thought I'd stay with Kate for a couple of days," she said, her voice hoarse, "to give you space." "Okay," Jacob nodded without looking at her. "Do as you see fit." "Jacob," she took a step toward him, but stopped. "I really love you, if you change your mind." "I won't change my mind," he said, turning to her. "I'm sorry, Emily. This is the end." She nodded, wiping away her tears, and walked out, closing the door quietly. Jacob was left alone, feeling the silence weighing on him. He sat down on the couch, opened his laptop, and began looking for a divorce lawyer. It was painful, but necessary. He couldn't live with someone who had lied to him for so long. He couldn't trust her again. And despite the love that still lingered somewhere inside, he knew their marriage was over. Jacob Clark sat in his lawyer's office, staring at the stack of papers that officially ended his marriage to Emily. It had been a week since their last conversation, when he had announced the divorce, and he had felt dazed the entire time. Emily had left for her friend Kate's that same day, leaving a note on the kitchen table that read, "I love you. If you change your mind, I'm here." Jacob read it, crumpled it up, and threw it away. He hadn't changed his mind. The pain of her lies and betrayal was too much, and he knew there was no turning back. The lawyer, an older man named Larry, adjusted his glasses and pushed the papers aside. "It's all set, Jacob," he said. "We've filed for divorce by mutual consent. Emily signed the papers yesterday, so it'll be quick. No property division, no kids, it'll be finalized in a month." "Okay," Jacob nodded, signing the last page. "Thanks, Larry." "Are you okay?" Larry looked at him over his glasses. "Divorce is hard, even if you're confident." "I can handle it," Jacob said, standing up. "I just want this to be over." "I understand," Larry shook his hand. "If anything happens, call me." Jacob walked out of the office feeling empty. He had expected the relief of signing the papers, but instead he felt only tired. He got into his car, but didn't start the engine, just stared out at the street. People were going about their business, and he thought about Emily. Her tears, her voice when she had begged for a chance, still echoed in his head. But he couldn't forgive. Not after she had lied to him for years about her past and gone to Ryan, the blackmailer from Iowa, instead of trusting him. When he got home, he noticed how quiet the apartment was. Emily had taken her things, her clothes, her books, even her stupid pillows from the couch. All that was left was her perfume in the bedroom and a pair of forgotten earrings on the nightstand. Jacob collected them in a box and put them in the closet. He didn't want to see any reminders. Then he opened his phone and blocked her number, deleting their messages as well. It hurt, but it was necessary. He didn't want her texting or calling, begging him to come back. That would only complicate things. The next day he went to the office, determined to drown himself in work. His colleague Matt noticed his gloomy mood and looked into the office. "Hey, Clark, why are you acting like a ghost?" Matt asked, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Here, these are for you." "Thanks." Jacob took the coffee but didn't take a sip. "I'm just busy." "Come on." Matt sat on the edge of the table. "You look like the world has ended. What happened?" "Nothing." Jacob shrugged. "Personal." "Personal?" Matt raised an eyebrow. "Look, if this is about Emily, you don't have to keep quiet. I'm not a gossip." "We're getting a divorce," Jacob said, surprised that he'd admitted it. "End of story." "Damn," Matt whistled. "Seriously? You were like the perfect couple." "They were," Jacob chuckled, looking at the table. "It turns out they weren't so perfect." "Well, bro, that sucks." Matt shook his head. "If you want, we can go to a bar after work, have a drink and chat." "Maybe," Jacob said, "but for now I have to work." "Okay, don't push yourself." Matt stood up. "But the offer still stands." Jacob nodded, grateful for the support, but he didn't want to talk about it. He opened his laptop and began sorting through the paperwork for a new case, some contract dispute. Work had always been a distraction, and he clung to it like a lifeline. But even as he immersed himself in the numbers, he couldn't stop thinking about Emily. Her voice, her smile, the times they'd been happy. It all seemed fake now. Meanwhile, Emily sat in Kate's small apartment, on a couch piled high with blankets. Her suitcase was in the corner, and her phone was lying next to her, the screen blank. She checked it every 5 minutes, hoping for a text from Jacob, but he was silent. She knew he had blocked her. She had tried calling yesterday, and the call had failed. It was like a punch in the gut. She had lost him, and the realization was tearing her apart inside. Kate entered the room with 2 mugs of tea. "Here," she said, handing one to Emily. "Have you ever eaten today?" "I don't want it." Emily shook her head, taking the mug. "Thank you, Kate." You can't just sit there staring at your phone." Kate sat down next to her. "Talk to me. What's going on?" "I ruined everything." Emily looked at her friend, her eyes red. "Jacob found out about Ryan, about my past. He filed for divorce." "Ryan?" Kate frowned. "That idiot from Iowa? What did he do?" "He blackmailed me," Emily said, her voice shaking. "He threatened to tell Jacob about, well, you know, my life in college. I tried to stop him, but I made it worse." "Wait," Kate put her mug down. "Were you dating Ryan?" "Yes," Emily hung her head. "Not because I wanted to. He made me. I thought if I agreed, he'd shut up." "Oh my God, Em," Kate shook her head. "Why didn't you tell Jacob? He would have figured it out." "I was afraid." Emily squeezed her mug. "I thought if he found out who I was, he'd leave me. And now, he already has." Kate sighed, placing her hand on her shoulder. "It sucks," she said. "But you can't just blame yourself. Ryan's a jerk. And Jacob, well, maybe he'll change his mind." "He won't change his mind." Emily shook her head. "You haven't seen his eyes. He hates me." "He doesn't hate," Kate said. "He's angry. Give him time." "There's no time." Emily wiped away her tears. "He blocked me. He signed the papers. It's over." Emily felt lost. She had lost not only Jacob, but the trust they had built over 3 years. She remembered their wedding, their trip to Lake Michigan, the nights they had laughed at silly movies. It seemed like a dream now. She knew she was guilty of lying, of not trusting him, of giving in to Ryan, but knowing the guilt didn't make it hurt any less. "What are you going to do?" Kate asked, sipping her tea. "I don't know," Emily shrugged. "I'll stay with you if that's okay. I'll find a job, maybe another one. I can't go back to Iowa." "Sure, live as long as you need to," Kate said. "But Em, you've got to pull yourself together. You can't just cry." "I'm trying." Emily looked at her. "But it's like part of me died." "I understand." Kate squeezed her hand. "But you're stronger than you think. You can handle it." Emily nodded, But she didn't believe it. She felt empty, like everything that made her had disappeared with Jacob gone. She wanted to write to him, beg him to come back, but she knew it was useless. He was adamant, and she couldn't blame him. Jacob, meanwhile, tried to move on with his life. He took on more work at the office, stayed late so as not to return to an empty apartment. His colleagues noticed that he had become more silent, but they did not pester him with questions. Only Matt sometimes tried to drag him out to the bar. "You're like a robot," Matt said as he walked into his office on Friday. "Let's go have a beer and relax." "Not today," Jacob said, not looking up from his laptop. "I have to finish the report." "The report can wait," Matt crossed his arms. "Look, I know you're in a bad way, but burying yourself in work isn't the answer." "I'm fine," Jacob lied, looking at him. "I'm just busy." "Yeah, sure," Matt rolled his eyes. "Okay, but if you change your mind, we'll be at Hops after 7. "Thank you," Jacob said, returning to the screen. He didn't go to the bar. Instead, he stayed in the office until 9, sorting through paperwork. Work was the only thing keeping him going. At home, he turned on the TV but didn't watch it, just sat with a beer, staring into space. He missed Emily her laugh, her habit of humming while she cooked dinner. But every time he thought of her, he saw the photos from the hotel, her confession that she'd chosen Ryan to keep a lie alive. It killed any warmth that was left. 2 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. Larry called to confirm that all the papers had been signed and the marriage was officially dissolved. Jacob thanked him and hung up. He expected to feel relief, but instead he felt only emptiness. He had lost the wife he loved, and now he didn't know how to move on. Emily learned of the divorce from her lawyer. She was sitting in a cafe with Kate when the letter arrived. After reading it, she cried right there at the table. "That's it," she said, wiping away her tears. "He left me." You knew this would happen," Kate squeezed her hand. "He was angry. Maybe it's for the best." "For the better?" Emily looked at her. "Kate, I loved him. I still do." "I know," Kate said. "But you can't make him come back. You have to move on with your life." "How?" Emily shook her head. "I don't know who I am without him." "You'll find yourself," Kate said. "You're smart, you're strong. Start small, get a job, do something." "I'm trying," Emily sighed, "but it hurts so much." She walked back to Kate's apartment, lay down on the couch, and closed her eyes. She knew she should move on, but she couldn't. Jacob was her world, and now it was all over. She blamed herself for lying, for Ryan, for everything. But most of all, she blamed herself for not trusting him. If she had told him the truth from the start, maybe things would have been different. Jacob sat in his office looking at the photo of their wedding, which was still on the table. He didn't put it away, even though he knew he should. He was hurting, but he was determined not to go back. Emily had broken their trust, and he couldn't live with that. He opened his laptop and started working on a new case, deciding that work was his only way forward. Love, pain, memories, all of it would have to go. It had been 6 months since Jacob and Emily Clark had divorced. Emily was living in a small rented apartment in Chicago, which she had found with the help of her friend Kate. She had taken a new job as a marketer at a startup where no one knew about her past. Life was getting better, but the emptiness inside her remained. She missed Jacob, even though she knew she had ruined their marriage. Her lies about her wild youth in Iowa, her cheating on her with Ryan Holt, who had blackmailed her by threatening to reveal the truth, had cost her her husband and her trust. Emily tried to move on, but every day was a struggle. One morning in April, Emily was sitting in a cafe near her work, scrolling through her phone. She was checking her email when she received a message from an old friend from Iowa, Lisa, whom she hadn't spoken to in years. The subject line was, "Have you heard about Ryan?" Emily frowned and opened the message. Lisa wrote that Ryan Holt, the same guy from their college, had been brutally beaten by unknown assailants a couple of weeks ago. He had been hospitalized with broken bones, but had since been released. The police had found nothing, and Ryan himself was tight-lipped about who did it. Lisa added, "They said he crossed someone. Weird, huh? Emily froze, rereading the letter. Ryan. Her heart pounded. After the divorce, he stopped texting and calling as if he had disappeared. She thought he was just tired of being blackmailed or had found another victim, but now, beaten. She felt relief mixed with anxiety. The blackmail was over, but who could have done it? Her thoughts involuntarily returned to Jacob. He knew about Ryan, knew he had threatened her. Could he? No, Jacob wasn't like that. Or was he? She put the phone down, feeling her insides tighten. That evening, Emily was sitting at Kate's, sipping wine. Kate was cooking pasta, humming. Emily told her about the letter. Wait, Ryan got beat up? Kate turned around, holding a spoon. The same jerk who blackmailed you. Yeah, Emily nodded, looking into her glass. Lisa wrote that he was in the hospital. Ha, he got what he deserved, Kate chuckled, stirring the sauce. Maybe he did something nasty to someone else. Maybe, Emily shrugged, but it's weird that it happened now. Weird, Kate looked at her. Do you think it's Jacob? I don't know, Emily sighed. He was so angry then, maybe he hired someone. Seriously? Kate rolled her eyes. Jacob's a lawyer, not a mobster. He'd sue, not punch someone in the face. You're right, Emily forced a smile. I don't know what to think. Kate placed the plates of pasta on the table and sat down opposite. Listen, she said, Ryan is a scumbag and he got it. It's not your problem. You're free of him now. Yes, Emily nodded, but her mind was elsewhere. It's like a weight has been lifted. He won't write to me anymore. That's great, Kate raised her glass. Here's to all the assholes getting what they deserve. For that, Emily clinked glasses with her, but the smile was weak. The next day, Emily decided to text Jacob. She knew he'd blocked her number, but a card was different. She didn't want to ask him to come back or make excuses, just say thank you. If he was responsible for Ryan's abandonment, she owed him one. And if he wasn't, she still wanted to tell him he'd changed her life. She stopped at a store, picked out a simple postcard of Chicago, and sat down at a cafe to write. She thought for a long time about what to say, crossing out words. Finally, she wrote, Jacob, you know what thank you for, and thank you for being in my life. I've learned my lesson. Emily. She sealed the envelope, wrote his address, the same one where they lived together, and sent it. She felt better, as if she had closed a door. Jacob received the postcard 3 days later. He came home from work, tired, with his briefcase in hand. There was an envelope on the hallway table. He recognized Emily's handwriting and froze. Part of him wanted to tear it up without reading it, but curiosity won out. He opened the envelope and read the short message. You know what I'm grateful for. He frowned. What was it about? His thoughts went back to Ryan. Mark, the detective, had mentioned a few months ago that Ryan had been hospitalized after a fight. Jacob hadn't thought much of it. Then he didn't wish Ryan ill will, but he didn't feel sorry for him either. Now he wondered, did Emily think he was involved? He sat on the couch, reading the card again. I've learned my lesson. He felt a twinge of pain, remembering their marriage, her smile, their evenings together. But then he remembered her confession, how she'd lied about the past, how she'd gone to Ryan to hide the truth. Anger flared, but it faded quickly. He didn't hate her, he just didn't want to go back to what had happened. He decided not to reply. The card didn't change anything. He put it in a drawer and went to make dinner. At work, Jacob tried to keep his temper in check. His colleague Matt noticed that he had become even more silent and looked into the office. Clark, are you even alive? Matt asked, holding up a sandwich. You look like you're doing 10 years of taxes. Ha, almost, Jacob said, looking up from his laptop. I'm just busy. Come on, Matt sat down. Look, I know things with Emily are, well, over. But you can't stare at a screen forever. Let's go to a bar and relax. Not today, Jacob shook his head. We need to finish the contract. The deal can wait, Matt rolled his eyes. Seriously, bro, you're like a zombie. At least have a beer. Maybe this weekend, Jacob said, just to get rid of him. Thanks, Matt. Okay, but I'm going to get you out. Matt stood up, pointing his finger at him. You can't get out of this. Jacob went back to work, but his mind was on the card. He had no part in what had happened to Ryan, but he couldn't help but feel a little satisfied that he had gotten what he deserved. But that didn't change his feelings for Emily. He had been hurting since the divorce, but he was determined to move on. His work became his refuge. He took on more work, stayed late to avoid thinking about his empty apartment. Emily felt strangely relieved when she got back to her apartment. Ryan wasn't threatening her anymore, and it was like a breath of fresh air after a long dive. She sat on the couch, looking out the window, and thought about Jacob. She hadn't expected a reply to the card. She knew he hadn't forgiven her, but she wanted to say thank you. He had taught her to be honest, albeit too late. She opened her laptop to check her resume. She had been thinking about changing jobs for something more stable. She needed a fresh start without the past weighing her down. The next day, she met Kate in the park for a walk. The spring sun was warm, and Emily felt a little lighter for the first time in a long time. You're not looking so gloomy today, Kate said, munching on her ice cream. What, got a new boyfriend? Ha, no, Emily shook her head. It's just, Ryan won't text me anymore. Well, thank God, Kate nodded. That idiot deserved to get beat up. Maybe, Emily shrugged. I wrote Jacob a postcard. Really? Kate looked at her. And what did she say? Thanked him, Emily looked at the trees, for being in my life. And, well, for Ryan, just in case. Do you really think Jacob ordered it? Kate laughed. You've been watching too many TV shows. I don't know, Emily smiled, but I wanted to tell him that I was sorry and that I've changed. That's cool, Kate squeezed her hand. You're great. Did he respond? No, Emily shook her head, and he won't answer. But I don't need him to. I just wanted him to know. Kate nodded, and they walked on, chatting about work and their summer plans. Emily felt like she'd taken a small step forward. She wasn't happy, but for the first time in 6 months, she felt like she could live without the constant burden of guilt. Jacob, meanwhile, sat in his apartment, watching the TV, which was showing some basketball game. He wasn't watching the game, he just wanted to fill the silence. Emily's card was in the drawer, and he wasn't going to read it again. He wasn't mad at it, but he didn't want to go back to the past. His life was about work now, about trying to find new meaning. He knew it would take time, but he was willing to wait. Emily was a part of his past, and he had left her there. At work, he met Sarah, an acquaintance from law school, who came by to discuss a case they were working on. Clark, you look better than last time, Sarah said, smiling. Have you found a new meaning in life? Ha, not yet, Jacob said, signing the papers. Just working hard. I understand, Sarah nodded. Listen, my husband and I are having a barbecue next week. Will you come? Maybe, Jacob said, so as not to offend. I'll think about it. Don't think, just come, Sarah winked. You need to get out of the office. Jacob smiled, but he knew he probably wouldn't go. He wasn't ready to meet new people or have fun. His life had narrowed to work and loneliness, and for now that was fine. He hadn't responded to Emily's card because he didn't want to give her hope. Their story was over, and he was determined to leave it behind. Jacob Clark stood at the window of his Chicago office, looking out at the bustle of the streets below. It had been a year and a half since his divorce from Emily had been finalized, and life was slowly beginning to take on new colors. The first months after the breakup had been hard. He had thrown himself into work, avoided his friends, and barely left the house except for the office. But as time had taken its toll, the pain of Emily's betrayal, her lies about her past, and her affair with Ryan had begun to dull. Now, at 34, he felt ready to move on. There was a new colleague at the law firm where he worked, Laura Davis, a corporate lawyer. She was 30, with dark hair pulled back into a neat ponytail and a direct gaze that immediately inspired trust. They had met at a staff meeting when they were assigned to work on the same case, a dispute between two tech startups. Jacob was immediately impressed by Laura. She was precise, logical, and unafraid to tell the truth, even if it didn't please everyone. After the meeting, they went to a coffee shop to discuss strategy. Laura ordered an espresso and started leafing through documents. "So, Clark," she said, adjusting her glasses, ready to deal with this circus. "These startups are fighting like kids in a sandbox." "Yeah," Jacob chuckled, sipping his latte. "One wants 1 million, the other 2. And there's zero evidence." "Typical," Laura rolled her eyes. "Look, I'm all for telling them they both screwed up right away. No games." "Really?" Jacob looked at her. "We usually stall for time to fill the clock first." "Not my style," she shrugged. "Honesty saves everyone's nerves." "How do you work?" "Well," he thought, "I am also for a direct approach. But sometimes you have to play by their rules." "The rules can be changed," Laura smiled. "Let's try it." Their work together was surprisingly easy. Laura was not only smart, but also had a sense of humor that helped diffuse tense moments. They quickly closed the case, convincing the clients to settle, and celebrated with pizza in the office. "Are you always this straightforward?" Jacob asked, taking a bite of pepperoni. "Yeah," Laura nodded, wiping her hands with a napkin. "They called me Miss Truth at school. My mom still jokes that I should have been a judge." "Ha, I believe you," he said, "and I was Mr. Justice, always getting into other people's arguments." "Oh, we'd be friends," she laughed. "Listen, would you mind going out after work? Not to the office cafeteria, but somewhere normal." "Sounds tempting," Jacob smiled. "Any ideas?" "There's a bar on Lake Street that has live jazz on Friday nights," Laura said. "Not too fancy, but not a dump either." "Agreed," he nodded, feeling a little nervous. It was their first non-work date, though at the time they both called it just hanging out. The bar was cozy, with dim lighting and a saxophonist on stage. Laura ordered whiskey, Jacob a beer, and they chatted about everything. Movies, travel, even the time Laura got stuck in an elevator for 3 hours. "What did you do?" Jacob asked, laughing. "I sang songs from The Lion King," she said without blinking. "Seriously, it kept me from panicking." "Remind me not to get stuck in the elevator with you," he winked. "Hey, I'd be a star." Laura nudged him with her elbow. "What would you do?" "Well, I'd probably try to open the doors like an idiot," he admitted. "I'm not very patient." By the end of the evening, Jacob realized that he was at ease with Laura. She was open, without pretense, and it was a breath of fresh air after everything he had been through with Emily. They began to meet more often, sometimes for dinner at a restaurant, sometimes for walks in the park, sometimes for evenings playing board games with her friends. Laura immediately said that she valued honesty, and Jacob told her about his divorce without going into details. "That must have been hard," Laura said when he mentioned Emily. They were sitting in her apartment, eating Chinese food from boxes. "Yeah," Jacob nodded, looking at the sticks. "She kept things from me. It broke me." "I understand," Laura looked at him. "I had a boyfriend who lied about everything, where he was, who he was with. I hate lies. Better the bitter truth than the sweet falsehood." "I agree," Jacob said, feeling the tension drain away. "That's why I'm all for honesty now." "Then we'll get along," she smiled, handing him a box of noodles. Their relationship developed naturally. A year later, Laura moved in with Jacob in his Lincoln Park apartment. They redecorated it, new curtains, Laura's books on the shelves, her coffee maker in the kitchen. Jacob felt like his home was alive again for the first time in a long time. He avoided thinking about Emily, though he would occasionally find things of hers, an old hairpin in a drawer, a note in a book. He threw them away, not letting the past come back. One night, a year and a half after they met, Jacob proposed to Laura. They were walking along the Lake Michigan boardwalk, eating ice cream, and he suddenly realized he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. He stopped, pulled out the ring he had bought a week earlier, and got down on one knee. "Laura," he said, his heart pounding. You make my life better. Will you marry me? Oh shit, Laura froze, holding the waffle cone. Are you serious? Yeah, he smiled. Well, are you going to say yes, or should I stand here forever? Yes, of course, yes, she laughed, throwing herself on his neck. The ice cream fell on the asphalt, but they didn't care. They married 6 months later in a small restaurant overlooking the city. It was a small wedding family, close friends, live music. Jacob looked at Laura in her simple white dress and felt he had made the right choice. She was his partner, his friend, and most importantly, she never lied to him. It gave him a peace he hadn't known with Emily. A year later, they had a son, Oliver. Jacob was over the moon when he first held him in the hospital. Laura, tired but happy, smiled at him. So, Daddy, are you ready for sleepless nights? She asked, adjusting her pillow. With you, it's all right, he said, kissing her forehead. He's perfect, Laura. Yeah, until he starts screaming at 3 in the morning, she chuckled. But yeah, he's cool. Oliver changed their lives. Jacob spent less time at the office to spend time with his family. He changed diapers, read books to his son, even learned how to make baby food, although Laura laughed at his first attempts. Is this potato or glue? She asked one day, tasting his masterpiece. Hey, I tried, Jacob protested, but he laughed. Okay, you cook better. Of course, Laura winked, but you're cute when you're fiddling with the blender. Their life was simple but full. He and Laura discussed everything from work to vacation plans. Jacob appreciated her openness, her habit of telling the truth, even when it was inconvenient. It was the complete opposite of his marriage to Emily, and he tried not to dwell on the past. Sometimes he remembered a card from Emily thanking him for something to do with Ryan, but he quickly pushed the thoughts aside. Emily was part of another life, and he didn't want to go back there. One day, when Oliver was 6 months old, Jacob met Matt, his colleague, at a bar where they went after work. Clark, you're still a dad now, and you're still as gloomy as ever, Matt said, raising his beer. How's your little guy? He screams, he eats, he sleeps, Jacob smiled. But he's cool. Laura says he looks like me. Poor kid, Matt chuckled. Listen, you're really glowing. Laura's a fire, you're lucky. Yeah, Jacob nodded. She's real. After what happened with Emily, you deserved it. Matt lowered his voice. Do you regret it? About the divorce? No, Jacob said, looking into his mug. It was right. I couldn't live with a lie. I see, Matt nodded. Well, here's to your new life, brother. Jacob clinked glasses with him, feeling warm. He was happy not perfectly, but truly. Laura and Oliver were his world, and he was building a family where there were no secrets. He didn't think about Emily, didn't search for her on social media, didn't wonder how she was doing. His life was here and now, and he was grateful for that. In the evening, he returned home, where Laura was feeding Oliver in the living room. She smiled when she saw him. Hello, hero, she said, rocking her son. How's the bar? Okay, Jacob said, taking off his jacket. Matt says hi. Cool, Laura nodded. Listen, Oliver said something like Dad today. Really? Jacob came up, looking at his son. Come on, kid, let's do it again. Don't expect miracles, Laura laughed, but he's clearly a fan of yours. Emily sat in the cozy office of her therapist, Dr. Susan Miller, holding a cup of herbal tea. It had been 2 years since her divorce from Jacob, and for her, those years had been a time of pain, introspection, and slow healing. Since moving out of her friend Kate's apartment and into her own small studio in Chicago, Emily had felt lost. Her lies about her turbulent past in Iowa, her cheating on her with Ryan, who blackmailed her, and the subsequent divorce had destroyed not only her marriage, but her sense of self. She knew she had to change, and therapy was the first step. So, Emily, Susan began, adjusting her glasses, how was your week? You mentioned you started a new project at work. Yeah, Emily nodded, sipping her tea. It's an ad campaign for a local clothing brand. Nothing grand, but I like it. It helps me take my mind off things. Distraction from what? Susan looked at her with a soft smile. Well, from thoughts, Emily shrugged. I still think about Jacob sometimes. About how things could have been if I hadn't lied. That's natural, said Susan. You loved him. But how do you feel when you think about it now? Guilt, Emily said, looking down. But not as much as before. I'm starting to understand why I did it. I was afraid he wouldn't accept me if he knew what I was like in college. Fear of rejection, Susan nodded. We talked about it. Where do you think it comes from? I guess it's how I grew up, Emily thought. My mom always wanted me to be a good girl. And in college, I rebelled. Parties, boys, all that stuff. But then I felt ashamed, like it made me bad. And you decided to hide it from Jacob, Susan said, to maintain your good girl image. Yes, Emily sighed. And when Ryan started blackmailing me, I panicked. I thought if Jacob found out, he'd leave me, and I made it worse. You made a choice out of fear, Susan wrote something down in her notebook. But now you see how that choice affected you. What do you want to do with that realization? Be honest, Emily looked at her. Not just with others, but with myself. I'm tired of pretending. Therapy helped Emily understand her mistakes. She began to understand that her lies weren't just an attempt to protect her marriage, but a way to hide from herself. She was afraid to be vulnerable, to show her weaknesses. Susan taught her to accept the past without shame and to build a future without falsehood. Emily began keeping a journal, writing about herself, about Jacob, about who she wanted to be. It was hard, but freeing. A year into therapy, Emily felt more confident. She changed jobs, going to an agency where she did social media for nonprofits. The work was fulfilling, and she made new friends who didn't know about her past. But in her personal life, she was cautious. She didn't date, afraid she'd do something wrong again. Her friend Kate tried to get her going. You can't be a nun forever, Kate said, sitting with her in a cafe. They were eating salads, the sun shining through the window. You're cool, it's time to move on. I'm not ready, Emily shook her head, picking at the leaves. What if I screw it up again? Ruin it? Kate rolled her eyes. You won't ruin it if you're yourself. Stop being afraid. Easy for you to say, Emily chuckled. Everything is perfect with you and Nick. Perfect, Kate laughed. He forgot to turn off the stove last night and almost burned down the kitchen. But I love him, and you will find someone if you give yourself a chance. Maybe, Emily smiled, but for now I'm focused on work. Everything changed when Emily met David. It was 3 years after her divorce, at a charity event where her agency was raising money for an animal shelter. David, a 35-year-old veterinarian, was volunteering. He stood at a puppy stand, wearing jeans and a shelter t-shirt, and laughed when one of the puppies licked his face. Emily came over to check on things. It looks like you're the one in charge of the puppies here, she said, smiling. Yeah, David nodded, holding the baby in his arms. They adopted me. I'm David, by the way. Emily, she extended her hand. I'm part of the organizing team. How are you? Cool, he said, shaking hands. People donate. The puppies are happy. Only this guy, he pointed at the puppy, wants to steal my heart. Ha, he knows his stuff. Emily petted the puppy. Maybe you should take him. I'll think about it, David smiled. How did you end up in this? Do you like animals? I love it, she said. I had a cat when I was a kid. Now I work on projects like this to help. They started talking, and Emily was surprised at how easy she felt with him. David was kind, with a gentle sense of humor and a genuine interest in people. After the event, he suggested they have coffee, and to her surprise, she accepted. I didn't think you'd say yes, David said, sitting with her in the cafe. You looked busy there. Well, you were with the puppies, Emily shrugged. It's like a magnet. I'll remember, he laughed. You should always carry a puppy in your pocket. And what do you do? besides saving the world? I work in marketing, she said. And you, besides treating animals? I go hiking, I read detective stories, he said. And sometimes I eat pizza at 3 in the morning. Oh, that's my level, Emily smiled. What pizza? Pepperoni, classic, David said. And you? Margarita, she replied. But I can eat yours if I share. Agreed, he winked. Their dates became regular. David was open, without pretense, and Emily felt she could be herself with him. After 3 months, she decided to tell him the truth about her past. They sat in his apartment, eating custom pizza, and Emily plucked up her courage. David, I have something to say, she began, putting down her piece. It sounds serious, he looked at her. What is it? I was married, she said, looking down at the table. And I ruined that marriage. In college, I lived. Well, not very modestly. Lots of parties, guys. I hid it from my husband, and then someone started blackmailing me. I did stupid things to keep him quiet, and I lost everything. Oh, David nodded, not looking away. That must have been hard. Yes, she swallowed. I'm seeing a therapist to sort this out. But I want you to know who I am. I don't want to lie anymore. Thank you for telling me, he said, taking her hand. It doesn't change what I think of you. You're honest with me, and that's what matters. Really? Emily looked at him, her eyes burning. True, he smiled. Everyone has a past. I'm no angel either. I stole a golf cart on a dare in college. Seriously, she laughed, wiping away tears. Yeah, he nodded. Almost got kicked out. So we're even. His adoption gave Emily hope. She realized she could have a relationship without fear. A year later, David proposed to her at the same shelter where they met, with a puppy in his arms and a ring in a box. Emily said yes, laughing and crying at the same time. Are you sure you want to marry me? She asked, putting on the ring. More than, David said, kissing her. Just promise not to steal the golf carts. I promise, she smiled. But are we taking the puppy? Already agreed, he winked. Their wedding was small, in the garden of David's parents' house. Emily wore a simple dress, flowers in her hair, and felt happy. She knew it wouldn't erase her mistakes, but it was a new chance. A year later, their daughter, Sophia, was born. Emily held her in the hospital, looking at her tiny face. She looks like you, David said, sitting next to her. I hope it's only an appearance, Emily smiled. I don't want her to repeat my mistakes. She'll be smarter than both of us, he kissed her forehead. We'll do well. Jacob Clark straightened his tie in the foyer of a banquet hall in downtown Chicago. The benefit for a local animal shelter was in full swing. Soft lights, live music, a buzz of voices, and the clink of glasses. Laura, his wife, held their 2-year-old son Oliver in her arms, showing him the puppies in the adoption corner. Jacob smiled at them. 5 years ago, he could not have imagined that his life would be so complete: a loving wife, a son, a home filled with laughter. The divorce from Emily, her lies and betrayal, seemed like a distant past now, almost a dream. Emily, standing at the other end of the room, adjusted her dress and laughed at a joke made by her husband, David. Their daughter, Sophia, 18 months old, sat in her stroller, curiously scanning the crowd. Emily felt at home. Her journey since her divorce had been difficult: therapy, self-improvement, fear of new relationships. But David, with his kindness and openness, had helped her build a life where there were no secrets. She was grateful for every day with him and Sophia. Jacob headed to the bar for drinks when he spotted a familiar figure standing at the auction stand. Emily. He froze, not expecting to see her there. She looked different, her hair a little shorter, her dress simple but elegant. There was a man standing next to her, tall and smiling kindly, and a little girl in a stroller. Jacob felt a pang of nostalgia, but not pain. He was no longer angry with her. Their marriage had ended long ago, and he was happy with Laura. Emily turned and spotted Jacob. Her eyes widened, but she smiled, not forced, but genuine. She said something to David, left the stroller with him, and came over. Jacob, she said, stopping a few steps away. I didn't think I'd see you here. Me too, he nodded, smiling. You look good, Emily. Thank you, she blushed slightly. You too. Is this your son? She nodded toward Oliver, whom Laura held nearby. Yeah, Oliver, Jacob said, looking at him warmly. Is this your daughter? Sophia, Emily smiled. And my husband, David. Cool, Jacob nodded. I'm glad you're okay. They were silent for a second, but the silence wasn't awkward. Emily cleared her throat, deciding to speak. Listen, she said, I've been wanting to say thank you for the long time, for everything that happened, and for the lessons. I've learned a lot. Me too, Jacob said, looking into her eyes. I'm glad you're happy, Emily. I really am. And I'm for you, she smiled softly. Laura seems wonderful. She is, he nodded. And David? He's the best. Emily looked at her husband, who was playing with Sophia. I told him everything from the beginning. No secrets. That's right, Jacob said. Honesty is the only way. They smiled at each other, realizing that their conversation was coming to an end. Take care, Jacob, Emily said, stepping back. And you, he replied. Good luck to you and Sophia. She nodded and turned back to David, who looked at her questioningly. Emily explained who it was, and David put his arm around her shoulders, smiling. She felt warmth as she looked at her family. Meeting Jacob had been unexpected, but not hard. She was grateful for the lessons of the past, the pain, the guilt, but also the realization that honesty was the most precious thing. Her life with David and Sophia had been built on truth, and she was proud of it. Jacob returned to Laura, carrying 2 glasses of wine. Oliver reached for the puppy, laughing, and Laura tried to hold him back. So, hero, where have you been? Asked Laura, accepting the glass. I came across the past, Jacob said, nodding toward Emily, who was with her family. Is that her? Laura looked, squinting. Pretty. Ha, you're better, he winked, kissing her cheek. We were just chatting. She's happy, and I'm happy for her. You're too kind, Laura smiled. But it's sweet. Oliver, by the way, wants a puppy. Oh no, Jacob laughed. One little bandit is enough for me for now. They continued the evening, laughing and discussing which lot to take at auction. Jacob looked at Laura and Oliver, feeling at peace. Meeting Emily had not stirred up old wounds, it had only reminded him how far he had come. His life with Laura had been open, without secrets, and he had treasured every minute of it. Emily, dancing with David to a slow tune, looked at Jacob, who was laughing with Laura. She smiled, feeling that everything was in its place. Their paths had diverged forever, but it was right. She returned to David, hugged him, and they pushed the stroller with Sophia towards the exit. What are you thinking about? David asked, opening the door. I'm just happy, Emily said, taking his hand. Thank you for being here. Thank you, he smiled. Let's go home, Sophia is already yawning. Jacob and Laura were getting ready to leave too. Oliver had fallen asleep on his father's shoulder and Laura was carrying their coats. Good evening, she said, looking at Jacob. Are you okay? It couldn't be better, he replied, kissing her. Come on, our bandit wants to sleep. They walked out into the cool night, each with their family, leaving the past behind. The meeting became a symbol of forgiveness for them, not a loud one, but a quiet, internal one. Jacob and Emily had found their happiness, and that was enough. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.